Where are you in terms of ridding your country of corruption?
First of all, in a country like Somalia, anything can be expected to be there, but I respectfully disagree. Many of our partners who claim that Somalia is the most corrupt country in the world. What I would like to say is that Somalia, there is a capacity limitation in running state institutions, but corruption as such, I will not. And this has been proven recently when we seek a third opinion to investigate the matter, and specialized forensic accounting and legal experts investigated the corruption issue of Somalia. The outcome, I hope you must have seen it, is that there is a capacity limitation. There is gaps that the proper procedures has not followed because of lack of knowledge, lack of experience. But the corruption as such, doing things intentionally, was not there as much. So I would have argued that Somalia, I do not deny there might be a level of misuse of resources, but it's mainly due to capacity limitation, but not corruption as such. And my government has put a policy in place whereby the Somali government is a zero tolerance corruption, and we're doing, and that's why we make top priority for the reform of the public finance institutions in Somalia.
But Transparency International, as you know, put Somalia over the last 6 years, and you've only been in power for a year, you know, at the bottom of the list for transparency and those kinds of values that you'd like to see.
Yes, that's true, and Transparency International has been, in its index, Somalia has been in that position. But the reality is that corruption is the intentional misuse of tools and instruments that are in place. When the tools and instruments are not there in place, then I hardly question how someone has measured the level of corruption. Right now, we are inviting and we are in the process of calling the Transparency International to bear with us on the process so that they are aware of what's going on in the ground.
How many Amazon troops are on the ground in Somalia?
There are 17,600.
And will they stay? Is it necessary that they stay?
Today, yes, it's necessary that they stay.
And if they don't stay, what, Al-Shabaab will come back in power, will begin to make inroads back in terms of the amount of territory they control?
No, but I would say Somalia, to be free from Al-Shabaab, will take long years if the Amazon forces are not in
there.
place.
And do you think they will stay?
They will. They will stay.
Okay. There's also piracy. Where is that? Is it more under control?
First of all, I would like to say Somalia has been in that part of the world for thousands of years, and we have no history of piracy at all in that part since the existence of Somalia in that part of the world. This is the only time that there are Somali piracy adventuring into the seas, and there are reasons behind this, and there are root causes that made this to happen. Now, in the last 1 year, we worked very hard. From our part, we engaged the community leaders to bring back the boys who adventured into the sea, and the international naval forces have put a lot of pressure in the seas. So now, the piracy started from the ground, and now it's back into the ground, in the land. The challenge that Somali government right now is facing is how can we make sure that these boys will not adventure again into the ocean? Can we provide them an alternative way of life?
Can you?
Yes, and that's what the Somali government right now is working, rehabilitating those boys and offering them training so that they can have an alternative way of life other than adventuring the seas.
The U.S. formally recognized your government in January?
Yes.
The UN Security Council in March voted unanimously to partially suspend an arms embargo for 12 months. The International Monetary Fund announced it was recognizing your government after more than a 20-year break in its relationship. What else do you need?
Well, it was very, very important and crucial for Somalia for the recognition of the United States government and followed by many other international partners, Europeans, Africans, Arabs. So today we have a legitimate state that represents the interest of Somali people in the world arena. That's absolutely very, very important and crucial diplomatic step. But that does not mean that the problems of Somalia has been raised at all in the face of the many challenges that we're facing. But this recognition, going back into the international financing institutions, helps a lot Somalia in its reconstruction. As recent as last week, we've concluded the first Somali conference that has been presented, Somalia Compact, as a new deal in Brussels, whereby more than $2 billion have been pledged. So without that recognition, without all this established, this conference would have never taken place. So Somalia is moving gradually, and we're coming back into the rightful position of the Somali people into the world community.
Because al-Shabaab was primarily located in Somalia before you began making inroads against them, you ought to be an expert on al-Shabaab. Mm-hmm. You ought to know a lot more than most people because you've been fighting them on the ground. Mm-hmm. People look at them and they hear about other al-Qaeda affiliated groups in Africa. Mm-hmm. Give us your assessment of the threat, whether it's Yemen, Somalia, somewhere else.
Al-Qaeda threat and its offshoots are still is very serious still in many parts of the world, particularly in the Horn of Africa. Al-Shabaab has been weakened, but their threat is still imminent and still it exists. And the war against these are phases now. One phase is ending soon, which is the military front. Mm. A new phase like this, you know, these people, when they are defeated militarily, they melt down into the society, and then handpicking them up from the society is another very, very difficult part of the war, which only the local security forces can do. In Somalia, that's where we are right now, but Al-Shabaab has links. I said this is an ideology, and ideology has no citizenship. There is a link between Al-Shabaab and the Boko Haram in Nigeria, which is the other part of the African continent.
How much of this is a battle of ideas to convince anybody who might be recruited, anybody who knows might be influenced of who they are and what it is you have to do to make sure that their ideology does not prevail?
This is an ideology which uses a multifaceted approach in the society, and its eradication has to be also a multi approaches. It is economic. Poverty has a greater role in the
poverty,
yes, has a greater role in it.
Right.
There are a lot of young boys and girls who join Al-Shabaab not because of believing their ideology, but because of following them to get $100 at the end of the month.
Okay. What will be the consequences? Because some will argue that in terms of the goals of terrorism, this attack in Nairobi achieved exactly what they wanted. The world's attention was focused on the group. We were all talking about them. I'm talking to you about them. That's what they want, isn't it?
Yes, that's what they want, particularly at this time in their situation in the ground in Somalia and in the Horn of Africa.
Right.
What they want is to show the world that they are still existing, while their existence now is in question. So it needs a combined effort of the region and the world at large to eradicate. And their eradication is not only military. I said it's economic, is a religious violation. Recently, there has been a conference in Somalia whereby more than 200 religious scholars get together and produced a fatwa telling the Somali people that what Shabab is doing has nothing to do with Islam and the religion. So that fatwa has also shaken them, and that's part of the war that we are.
That's the war of ideas and the war of ideology.
Ideology, yes.
Are there in any way repercussions, say, on the will this attack, in which people died at a shopping mall, 60 or more than 60, affect the relationship between Kenya and Somalia?
No, I don't think that it will affect. It will affect in a positive way. It will only make our relationship more cohesive and more binding. We shared the pain together whenever there is a catastrophe happens in Somalia. The Kenyan president and the people of Kenya shared it with us. We shared with them this one. Somalia has stand with Kenya on these difficult hours. I have been talking to the president of Kenya many times during the siege, and I'm going to visit Kenya to share with the agony. And the Somali community as a whole in Mogadishu, they shared it with them. The Somali community living in Kenya, they shared it with the government by donating blood, by donating resources to the people that have been affected. So it makes us more cohesive and more cooperating. It doesn't create any suspicion or finger pointing because we have the experience of this type of things. Once it happens, another thing that they would have liked is that Somalia and Kenya quarreling on the causes and of this incident, but that's not the case. We are getting closer more and more.
Mr. President, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
We will watch carefully your speech on Thursday.
I will. Thank you. Thank you.